world, and he has written songs on hundreds of subjects ranging from history to animals to Torah. His lyrics speak for themselves. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome ARI LESSER!
I want you to rap for me too. There's a lot of shluchim out there with tefillin, so if you're a man, you haven't put on tefillin today, wrap up, and I'll rap for you, okay? Because we really need to pray, you know what I'm saying? We need to pray to Hashem, because that's the only one who's gonna help us. Pray for Israel, pray for Jerusalem, pray for redemption, pray for Mashiach, because the world is like not logical anymore. They're not working on rationale. So we need to go above logic and above reason and above ration. You look at college campuses, they're supposed to be the place of logic and reason and rationale, science. And you have Israel Apartheid Week. Can you believe this? It's just propaganda and lies, and they don't want to hear the truth. People say Israel's an apartheid state, but I can't relate to that baseless hate. It's not really fair to try and compare a racist regime with the war on terror. Using common sense against violence, Israel had to build up the border fence. And if you think that's apartheid, it's because you don't know what apartheid really was. For 2,000 years the Jews are Rome, but we always called Israel our home. Unlike the British and Dutch who came to South Africa where they had no claim. They already had countries overseas, but they wanted to expand to new colonies, so they conquered the natives, bought and sold their land they stole full of diamonds and gold. The whites united and decided to create South Africa as a democratic state, but soon they denied blacks voting rights, so the whole government was controlled by whites. The House and the Senate and all of the courts were white, so the black people had no support. Bless the police would arrest and beat any peaceful protesters in the street. They divided everybody into 4 different races, moved them by force into separate places. So if you were Indian, black, or brown, you had no business in the white town. They had segregation of transportation, buses, bus stops, trains, and train stations, separate ambulance, different doctor and nurse, and the black hospitals were always worse. Restaurants, hotels, and the public park might be off limits if your skin was dark. It was a crime, and you could get more than a fine if you crossed the line of that whites only sign. They had separate teachers at different schools, black and white beaches and swimming pools. Cafes and movie theaters wouldn't let folks in, discriminating if they had the wrong color skin. No mixed marriage, it was a criminal act for a white person to have relations with a black. Apartheid went from the womb till the tomb, couldn't even take a dump in the same bathroom. So people say Israel's an apartheid state, but I can't relate to that baseless hate. It's not really fair to try and compare a racist regime with the war on terror. Using common sense against violence, Israel had to build up the border fence. And if you think that's apartheid, it's because you don't know what apartheid really was. In Israel, apartheid is not the case, cause regardless of gender, religion, and race, all Israeli citizens, black, brown, and white, have equal social and political rights. So the Arab-Israeli population, which makes up 20% of the nation, might be a minority, but at least they can vote, unlike the rest of the Middle East. Look at the whole region, you'll see only Israel is truly a democracy, where every citizen's right to vote is protected, and Arab officials often get elected. That's an important point, let me stress it. There's a dozen Arabs with seats in the Knesset, plus an Arab judge on the Supreme Court, so they don't fall short on government support. And everyone has access to the same schools, same beaches, and the same swimming pools, the same resorts and hotel guest rooms, same public parks and public restrooms, same cinemas, restaurants, cafes, same trains, buses, taxis, and highways, same doctors and nurses. All deliveries of babies are done in the same facilities. Arab-Israeli life expectancy is great, up by 27 years since 1948, and their infant infant mortality rates have declined from 32 per thousand to less than 9, and they're doing much better economically relative to every other Arab country. There's no restriction on choice of career. They can even join the military if they volunteer. They work and reside wherever they please, from a lot all the way to the Sea of Galilee. They live in the very same cities as Jews, on the same street, in the same house if they choose. So people say Israel's an apartheid state, but I can't relate to that baseless hate. It's not really fair to try and compare a racist regime with the war on terror. Using common sense against violence, Israel had to build up the border fence. And if you think that's apartheid, it's because you don't know what apartheid really was. Thanks, y'all. I'm telling you, it's craziness. You know what pisses me off the most? What pisses me off the most about it? By calling Israel apartheid, you're comparing us to South Africa. What happened in South Africa was a bunch of Europeans came down to the southern coast of Africa, about as far away from Europe as you can get, and conquered an indigenous people and took over the country. Now, to compare Israel to that is to claim that Jews are not indigenous to Israel. This is nonsense. You think we're from Brooklyn? You think we're from Poland? I tell you, the Germans didn't think we were from Europe. We're from the Middle East. That's what we're from. We're indigenous. We're an indigenous people, and we're indigenous to the Holy Land. That's our home. So this song's called Indigenous. Jews are indigenous to the Middle East, and all we're asking is for a little peace. Been oppressed ever since we were dispossessed, enslaved, arrested, and put to death. But we persevered, never disappeared. Been in Israel for thousands of years. Thank God we've been able to overcome. Still living in the land that we come from. Ancestors rest in peace in Hebron. I couldn't hold back my tears at that grave. My forefathers felt so near. Stopped in Bethlehem, broke down and cried when I realized that was where my grandmother died. In Jerusalem, I was bawling, cause all that remains of our temple is the Wailing Wall. It's been standing alone since our exile began, when many were forced to flee from the land. Some stayed, but those who wandered away prayed to return 3 times every day. At last we've been answered, and now we stand together with our clan in the Holy Land. Cause Jews are indigenous to the Middle East, and all we're asking is for a little peace. Been oppressed ever since we were dispossessed, enslaved, arrested, and put to death. But we persevered, never disappeared. Been in Israel for thousands of years. Thank God we've been able to overcome. Still living in the land that we come from. Now some people say that Ashkenazi originally came from Germany. Well, ask a Nazi and he'll disagree. Doesn't think that we're part of his family tree. He's actually right about one thing at least. We're not from Europe, we're from the Middle East. But the Romans came and destroyed our home, overthrown. Some of us had to go on to Rome. But there was Jews who never left the land. They just got crushed by the Caesar's hand, slaughtered like sheep at home and abroad, with no other choice but to turn to God. Divided and conquered, our enemies tried to end us with a worldwide genocide. But Hitler failed, our people prevailed, so we still stand strong with Israel. Cause Jews are indigenous to the Middle East, and all we're asking is for a little peace. Been oppressed ever since we were dispossessed, enslaved, arrested, and put to death. But we persevered, never disappeared. Been in Israel for thousands of years. Thank God we've been able to overcome. Still living in the land that we come from. Well, much love, y'all. I guess see you guys again at 7 o'clock. I'll be back. ARI LESSER!